have your journals, I am going to, I think, do the sermon out of this journal because I want to work on something this morning, and it's called Don't Miss the Moment. The text on this Generosity Sunday is found in the book of Galatians in the 6th chapter. And I'll be reading. I thank you for taking notes in the journal. That's encouraging to me. And you might want to, I thought about this. This might sound silly, but, if you like what I'm saying, point it at me. Let's do that. Go ahead, Doc. Preach this thing. Because at the end, I'm going to ask you to hold it up and make a commitment. The text reads in Galatians, the 6th chapter, starting at the 6th verse. I think it's coming to the screen. Nevertheless, the one who receives instruction in the word should share all good things with their instructor. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man or a woman reaps what they sow. Whoever sows to please their flesh, from the flesh will reap destruction. Whoever sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit will reap eternal life. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we faint not. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to the family of believers. Have you ever missed a moment? I remember, and I can never forget, my son was probably 8 or 9 years old. It was a Friday evening, and we were sitting on the couch together watching the basketball game. I don't remember who it was. It was probably, we were in Chicago. It was probably one of these Jordan runs to 6 championships for the Bulls. We were on a Friday night. He was leaning into me. I was leaning into him. And some material was being passed of my soul to him and his soul to me. The phone rang, and it was a church member. We were a smaller church at the time. We were growing, and we didn't have a building, and so my office was my house, and my phone was the church phone. It was like that. And it was a disgruntled church member, so I looked at him and said, "Give me 2 minutes." And 2 minutes turned into 5 minutes, and 5 minutes turned into 7, and 7 turned to 10, to 15, to 20, to 25, and all of a sudden, I heard footsteps up to his room. And he shut the door. Now, if that had been my daughter, she would have slammed the door. Because she was the kind that I'm going to have time with my daddy, so when people would stand in front of the, they'd be lying to speak to me after church, she'd come to the front, this is my daddy, I need to speak to him, right? But he wasn't like that. He would recede to the background. When I heard the door shut, reality hit me like, get off this phone. I got to get off this phone. I'm like, I don't know what. I got off the phone. And I went upstairs and I said, "Tony, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready." He said, "Dad, I'm doing something else now." Have you ever missed a moment? I remember sitting here, it hits me to remember that my father-in-law, who never got a degree, but he was learned of wisdom, he used to say, y'all don't touch that boy enough. Y'all don't touch that boy enough. That's old people stuff. You know how old people just make comments. They don't have a psychological degree. They don't know nothing about therapy, at least in the form that but have you ever missed a moment? You see, life is made up of moments, relational settings, where the moment is pregnant and opportune for doing good. The moment is pregnant for loving, for showing affection, for caring, for expressing our appreciation, for connecting in ways for the healing of the soul. There are moments that can heal your soul. Have you ever missed the moment to do good? You see, all of this takes ongoing practice, and when we miss our opportunities, we don't practice. So it's foreign to us or distant to us when the writer says, therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to the household of faith. We miss the opportunity because we haven't practiced doing good. Have you ever missed a moment? I have. You see, in this text, it says, as we have opportunity. Don't miss that, which means that as we have opportunity means there may come a time when you miss the opportunity, or opportunity is a moment, it's a minute, it's a window, it's a second. It's a sliver of light in all the darkness of life. You can miss the moment and the window of opportunity closes. There are time limits on doing good. We live in moments that present us with the opportunity to do good. And when we miss them, we live in the land of regret. What we could have done and might have, ought to, should have done. Don't miss the moment to do good. When Paul speaks about doing good, what he means is generosity. Well, what is generosity? Generosity is to do what is morally right and make it beautiful. To do right extravagantly. To do right and make it beautiful and attractive. You see, many of us do what is right, but we don't go to the extra measure to make it beautiful. Let me offer you, mama said, take care of baby boy. Mama said it, and baby boy needs a lot of taking care of, and mama said, and you want to cast baby boy to the side, but mama said, and you remember what mama said. And baby boy needs a loan, so you give baby boy the loan, which in giving family members a loan is giving them the money. And you mad about it. And you get on the phone with the rest of the siblings and talk about how trifling, Mama spoiled this boy, and I'm left to deal with him. You doing right, but it's not beautiful. It's begrudging. It's tongue in cheek. It's what the poet says when the poet says to do the right thing for the wrong reason. But to make the right beautiful. A friend of ours invited us down, retired pastor and first lady. They were going to downtown Chicago, and they said, why don't y'all, on New Year's Eve, why don't y'all come down and get a room down here and hang out, and we can have dinner, and then we can hang out. We're going to stay 2 nights. We can have brunch. Why don't y'all come and hang out? Well, we live on the edge of downtown, so, I mean, it's like, we live 7 minutes from the hotel they were suggesting. So being the practical kind that I am, it didn't make sense to me to go get a hotel room when, in fact, what we could do is just get in the car, drive down there, eat dinner, drive back home, stay in our own bed, get up the next morning, drive back down. That's what, that made sense to me. Okay. So I go home and tell my wife, and the look in her eyes said, we going downtown. I've been married long enough to recognize that look, and so I went and got the room. Oh, we went down there, we had brunch, it was beautiful. 7 o'clock, we met for a lovely restaurant, just one of the finest restaurants in Chicago. We had a lovely time. Got finished with that, we walked, and they have fireworks over the Chicago River. Messed around and got a room that was looking directly out at the Chicago River. I mean, we were doing it. We were, laying on at midnight. We come home at 10:30, open the window, we could see everything. And then at midnight, we saw the fireworks. We lay in bed and watched the fireworks. Had a lovely time. I mean, my God. Then got up the next morning, went to brunch. It was wonderful. They had all kind of food. We fellowshipped. It was great. It was a great time. It was beautiful. It was so good that when I checked out of the hotel, I said, I don't want my wife to hear this, but I want this room next year. I'm coming back. As a matter of fact, I want 2 nights. It would have been right to go and meet them. But it was beautiful to stay. It was amazing. It was, somebody said, a change of scenery. It was to exceed expectations. It is to take it up another notch, to level up, in the contemporary words, to take your game to another level, to do good based in the moral and the beautiful, to go above and beyond, to do the extraordinarily kind thing, to make the right overflow. You see, generosity is based in the ability to be lovingly sensitive and aware of others and generally interested in other people. Generosity is to share and distribute your excess and be on one accord. Now, there's some people in this room that's got some excess. Matter of fact, some of us got more excess than we thought we'd ever have. We got more excess than anybody in the family. So what do you do with your excess? I'm going to come back to it in a minute. Paul says, sow to the spirit, don't sow to the flesh. I'm coming back to it. The text says, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people. Let us do good, especially to the household of faith, Let us do good. Let's be kind to all people. You know the word kind? Take off the D and you get kin. Let us be kin to everybody. Let us be kin to immigrants. Let us be kin to everybody, and especially the household of faith. You see, this text has 2 dimensions. The first is sharing of your financial resources. You cannot get away from this in this text. I was so excited to see these 10 commandments. I'm just so excited. I'm trying not to be long in the sermon, but I'm so excited. Y'all get these little things? Can I run through them real quick? I'm excited about them because I think they'll help somebody. It says, number one, thou shalt return the Lord's tithes. I'm coming back to that. I'll be back there in a minute. Thou shalt build an emergency fund. Hello, somebody. Emergencies happen, right? Thou shalt know your inflow, your outflow, and your cash flow that to produce some overflow. Right? You got to know where you are. Thou shalt live beneath your means. You see, you can't spend 110% of what you make. Not that I used to teach, it's just not that y'all have to do this. I used to teach a concept called 10-10-80. 10% goes to God, 10% we save and invest, and we live off 80% of what we make. So we would pay God, then we'd pay ourselves, and then we'd pay the bills, but we were living off 80% of what we make, which is very hard to do, but you can do it, and y'all got classes around here that will help you. Thou shalt know your tax and seek tax obligations and seek wise counsel. There are people who manage or get better use of their resources by virtue of consulting tax people who tell them, what account to take. To be like, all of that. I don't want to get too deep, but y'all forgive me. I got to run by this. Thou shalt take action to protect yourself financially. And you shall protect yourself financially. You can't get in tons and tons of debt. And if you can, work your way out and don't get back again. Thou shalt understand credit and the bondage that it creates. Good credit, and there's a thing called good credit, there's a thing called bad credit. And thou shalt save and invest. Thou shalt not borrow against thy retirement funds before retirement. Thou shalt educate yourself about what's going on so that you know that when you put down a credit card and don't pay it, it's 28% interest. Now, all of that's the backdrop to what I'm getting ready to say, because this text says, look at verse 6. Nevertheless, the one who receives instruction in the word should share all good things with their instructor. The text says, if the instructor is feeding your soul, you should share your financial resources with your instructor. That's in verse 6. This is what I'm telling you. This text is also talking about financial resources. So I went and did a pastor's anniversary, and when I went and did it, he was at 35 years or something, and so, I chose the text, and the name of the sermon was Double It. I said, this man done served, and his family and his wife, they done served this church all these years, and whatever y'all paying him, double it. And they looked at me like y'all looking at me right now. You must be crazy. I said, let me give you the scriptural base. The scripture says, don't muzzle the ox that's treading out the grain for your soul. In other words, the ox is treading out spiritual food for your life. And if the ox is treading out spiritual food, then you should share of your financial resources with your instructor. Don't muzzle the ox. And then I backed it up with this. Nevertheless, the one who receives instruction in the word should share all good things with their instructor. That's verse 6. I got to go. I want to stay there, but I got to go. But I'm talking about financial resources. Verse 7. You can read all this when you go home. Do not be deceived. God cannot be played. A person will reap what they sow. If you sow to please your flesh, from the flesh, you're going to reap destruction. If you sow to please the Spirit, if you sow morally, that's what's moral and beautiful, and you will bountifully reap beautifully and extravagantly. God will do exceedingly and abundantly more than what you can ask or think. God has done something for me that is so far beyond anything that I could ever have dreamed or imagined. It wasn't on my vision board. It wasn't on my goal-setting board. It wasn't in my plan. It was not in my purpose. I couldn't see it. I couldn't dream it. But I think when you sow to the Spirit, when you give generously of yourself, when you give more than you take, God will bless. Then verse 9, I got it. This is a drive-by. I can't touch verse 9. It says, let us become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap if we faint not. I need to preach that all by itself. I can't touch it. It's just too much. It's too much. I got too much to say because we want to quit. We want to give up. I'm tired. I've been doing this too long. We ain't getting nowhere. Oh, no. God said, no, this text says, let us not become weary in being, do not become weary with your kinfolk. That's my translation, of course. For at proper time we will reap if we faint not. Then verse 10, let us do good to all people as we have opportunity. That's verse 10. And I want to share this with you all. See, underneath this text is something called giving alms. You ever heard that? Giving alms. On the way into the temple by the city gate, or on the way to the synagogue, beggars would sit. The poor would sit. And it was considered piety, being an honor to God if you would bless the beggar, for lack of a better word, the poor who are sitting at the gate, and then bring your tithe into the house, church house. Now, I had members who used to tell me that they tithed. And then I look at the record, they ain't gave nothing for 2 years. How you tithing? I thought I said, how you tithing? They say, well, I'm paying my brother's rent, and that's unto God, so I consider that a tithe. I said, no, that's alms. Tithe is what you bring to the house. Alms is what you give to your sorority and your fraternity. Alms is what you give to the United Way. I want you to give. Alms is what you give to your alma mater. I want you to do all of that. But tithes are what you bring to the house. And we're doing this so that you have the ability to bless United Way, to bless your alma mater, to give alms, and bring your tithes and your offerings. Y'all help a lot of people. I saw that van, that thing y'all got flying around the city. I saw it. This is why you bring your tithes into the storehouse. You see, the second part of this, I'm moving. The second part of this is wherever Paul would go, he would take an offering for the Jerusalem church, the mother church. The mother church was the poorest church. So he would always encourage a congregation to give beyond itself. When I was a pastor in my first church, we used to give 10% of our income to the community. Matter of fact, you could come to us and we would judge grants because we wanted to sow back into the community. So what I'm saying to you is the reason you bring your tithe is so we can bless the community. You give alms. And you give tithes and offerings. I knew it was going to be really quiet on this section. I figured that. I've already factored in your spiritual amens. I have. So let me summarize. Number one, Paul says about the financial aspects of this: support the teachers in a Christian congregation. Use of money to build the life of the spirit rather than the flesh. And spending money to help others and not feeding your flesh. There's another side to this text, which is giving of yourself, volunteering, sharing your life, caring, and doing good. And I want to tell you about an experience. In 2017, we developed the very first in the world PhD program in African American preaching and sacred rhetoric. As a part of the new development of the program, we didn't have much money for scholarships. But we started the program, and we were trying to raise money for scholarships. And so I walked into a person who was very close I was working with. Out of the development office, they gave it to me as a strategist to help me think long-term about the program and also to help me raise funds. I walked in her office, and she was writing handwritten notes. And I said, can't somebody else do that? In other words, can't you get a form letter? Just sign your name and have, y'all know what I'm talking about. You've gotten thousands of them. I said, matter of fact, they'll do mail merge. They'll make it sound personal, but you know a form letter that ain't personal. You know that's just a mail merge. She said, have a seat. Okay. She said, when you were a pastor, how did you thank the members of your congregation for their giving? I said, well, I stand up on Sunday morning. Thank you very much. I appreciate your giving. She said, that ain't personal. That's for everybody. She said, how did y'all think y'all's? I said, you in my business now. I said, how, I said, I used to write a nice note. We have to send out the income tax letter. So I write a nice note. They would make them all on the income tax letter, and they'd go out and come to your house, and it's from me, a little personal note from me. And she said, that's the law. That's not generosity. See, you can do right, but not make it beautiful. And I thought about a time in my ministry that I wrote handwritten notes to the members for a year. And it was an exciting time for the church because, it was exciting until they started playing games. I got a letter from the pastor. Did you get one? It was beautiful till they got into all that crazy stuff. And then people come out, when my letter coming? I'm working on it, all right? So I would be doing something. So let's say, I'd say, I take out in the airplane, I'd take out a piece of paper, take up, the note card, and I'd say, Dear Joe, I am so excited to be flying. I'm doing 35,000 feet in the air, 17-hour trip from Atlanta to Johannesburg, South Africa for a time of rest and renewal. My wife and I, Joyce, we're hanging out. I'm going to do some preaching, but not much. And I am just sitting here thinking about what you mean to this church, how you sacrifice, how you serve, how you give. There's nothing that I don't ask you that you're not willing to do. So I am so deeply appreciative for your service and what you mean. Thank you so much. By the way, I am in South Africa. I'm on the way, and I'm going to be going on a safari. I'm going to Kruger Park. I got some stuff to do, but we're going to be chilling. And now you're going to see me before you get this note because I can't mail it in South Africa. I got to mail it at home, and you will have already been in church by the time you get this, but I just want you to know I appreciate your service. Thank you so much. And people would explode with joy and thanksgiving that I took time to write them a card. It surprised me, so I kept writing them. I remember one, it was a woman, one of our members. I couldn't get to the funeral, and so I wrote her a note and said, I can't get there, blah, blah, blah. I'm praying for you. I want you to know. I went and said, what I was doing. I'm thinking about you. And she said to me, I did not know that if I would even get into the car to go to my mother's funeral. And if I got in the car, I didn't know if I was going to get out. But I went to the mailbox before they picked us up, and I read your note. And that note gave me the courage and strength to get to my mother's homegoing service. I'm just writing a note. You see, they got us trapped into thinking that we have to buy diamonds and furs. And my wife would say, well, that you should. We just don't want you to put it on a credit card. You can't go in there talking about, I'm getting ready to bless my wife, and a month from now is 27% interest. No, that ain't blessing. That's a short-term blessing. But pretty soon, both of y'all are going to try to figure out how to get out of this 27% debt. Anyway, it's the simple things. Let me give you one more. We know this, for example. So what she did was she tracked how the students were paying their tuition. And the students were putting the tuition on credit cards. She put a chart together and showed it to me. She said, you're the director of the PhD program. These are how your students are paying their tuition. At least 7 of them out of the 10. She said, do you believe in life-altering debt? Do you believe in debt that a person can get into that will hinder their whole lives? Do you believe, that debt, school debt will not be forgiven? Do you know that bankruptcy can come for business debt but not school debt? Do you want these folks shackled? And she said, do you realize that by the time you get to a doctoral program, you already got debt? Particularly people who go to Christian schools and seminaries and that they get in a bunch of debt, and oftentimes they come out to smaller churches that can't afford. And so they're making small amounts of money. They're not making business. Can you live with this? So I said, well, obviously I can. So what? She said, let's go out and raise some money. So we went out and raised the money, you all. We raised, across 3 years, we raised 13 scholarships, she and I. And I remember bringing a student in. We would bring them in and say, we noticed that you're putting your tuition on credit cards. Tell us about it. And they would get honest and they would cry. Because it's a burden, y'all. I got some people in this room right now, Shaka, it's a burden. So when we got through, we would say, we found there are people who really value what you're doing, and we're able to, by the generosity of churches, give you a $45,000 scholarship, $15,000 for 3 years that will take care of your tuition. And you don't have that burden anymore. And people would weep. And then we would say this: because it's a $45,000 scholarship, we can give you back all the money you put on those credit cards. Now, if you show up with a new Mercedes, I got an issue. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Take that money and pay off. This is to make the good beautiful, you all. This is to be extravagant. This is to be generous. It's to be. So I don't have to beg them students for anything. Everybody in the school said, them students will run through a wall for you. I said, yeah, they'll run through a wall because I fly to their mother's funerals and I'm a scholar, but I'm a pastor, and I don't want their lives afflicted and bound. If I can do anything, I will. So guess what? They'll do it for me as well. I say stuff like, if you got to give them an alumni card, it's too late. This is what I'm asking of you. This is what this text asks of you. To do good to all people, especially to the household of faith, to make everybody your kinfolks. This is a lot. It seems like a lot. It seems like a lot, but do I need to bring Jesus to the stage? Do I need to say that he came through 40 and 2 generations, born on the backside of a cheap motel? Do I need to say he left glory? Came down for you and me. Paul says he became poor so that we could become rich. Do I need to remind you? This is Gardner Calvin Taylor. He was eternal, but he became time trapped. He was everlasting and beyond any pain, but he became pain capable. He invented death, but as a part of the human condition, he himself became death eligible. He was generous, extravagantly so, and he made death beautiful. He turned the grave into an opportunity to bless you and me. He turned the grave and the cross and the shame and an opportunity to bless you and me. And I want to thank him because he didn't have to do it. Have y'all heard these lyrics? Let's try this. Tragedies are commonplace. All kind of diseases. People are slipping away. The economy's down. People can't get enough pay. But as for me, all I can say is thank you, Lord. Now, you might have taken it for granted, but woke me up this morning. You might take it for granted, but it started me on my way. You might take it for granted, but I dressed myself this morning. I put on my own clothes. I tied my own shoes. You might not thank him for it, but I want to thank him. I put my own fork to my own mouth. I want to bless him. I moved out of the hotel under my own power. I want to thank him. Songwriter said, for all he's done for me. Folks without home living out in the streets. And the drug habit some say they just can't beat. Muggers and robbers, no place seems to be safe, but you've been my protection every step of the way. It could have been me outdoors with no food and no clothes, left alone without a friend. Just another number with a tragic end. But you didn't see fit to let none of these things. I'm going to come back to that last piece. We get people that get shipped up. They come out of Texas and Florida, and they're sending them to the big cities. So they'll send them to Chicago, they'll send them New York. And so I live in Chicago, so all of a sudden, when all the places got filled and they kept sending them and sending them and sending them, all of a sudden out in front of the supermarket, you'd see immigrants. Wife, 3 kids. And so the first time I saw it, it shocked me because, it was, skin color says immigrant. Don't really know the language. And so my scam defense went up. And so I went on into the store and I was shopping. And we eat healthy, so we buy coconut milk. Coconut milk is more expensive than regular milk, right? So we, want the organic stuff. And it hit me. We're paying all of this, and you didn't help the lady. I went out there, we came back out, she was gone, the family was gone, missed the moment. Now, I realize this is hard, Joel, because you can't help everybody. I realize that there are scams, I realize. But this is what I say to you, don't look in their eyes. I came back the next week, went same stuff, and another one was out, this time husband, wife, and 2 or 3 kids, and it's got a sign, will work, hire me, help, blah, 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 on the sign. So because of the other week, my wife and I, we gave to them. So we go into the supermarket, and all of a sudden one of those kids is running down the aisle and he's picking up things. And I don't know if they're picking it up because of what we gave, but I know they ran to the restroom, and I was in the chip aisle, and they were looking. Whatever that they had in a little looking for food. I say, don't look in their eyes, because if you look in their eyes, you're going to see you. Because it could have been me. Outdoors. With no food. And no clothes. Left alone. Without a friend. Just another number. You know the number of young men in the neighborhood I grew up in that are just another number with a tragic end, and I'm sitting in front of you. Because I chose the church. I didn't choose the gangs. I didn't choose the drugs. I didn't choose chasing the women. I got myself in the church and tried to do what was right. It could have been me outdoors with no food and no clothes. If it were not for God on my side, teaching me and guiding me, Sunday school teachers and Sunday school instructors and people who would open up the gym and let us come in and play basketball, and preachers who were preaching the word and teaching the word, and saints who were trying to live the word. And yes, they got those, they weren't trying at all. But there was some who put a $5 bill balled up. You going to school, young man, you're going to school. Take this. When I graduated from school, when I graduated from college, the Men's Day speaker canceled at the last minute. The pastor called me up and said, we need a graduation a speaker. And since you graduated and since everybody's celebrating, we want you to be the speaker. And I didn't know. I said, I didn't know. He said, will you do it? I said, yes, before I knew it. Yes, I'll do it. And then, I had my little message. I went from Genesis to Revelations. I left no stone unturned. And the same mother of the church who put that $5 when I was going back to school, she come and put her hand and says, now you were good, but you were long. I went and got me some schooling so I wouldn't be long. That's why I got to close the sermon. But I wonder, you see this journal? Let me tell you why we gave this journal and I'm out. Because I want you to build your practice for doing good. I called up the team and said, hey, y'all, what if we gave them a generosity journal? What if we just gave it to them? I don't want them to buy it. Why don't we just give it to them as an act of generosity? Your church, your pastor, your staff, your team is giving. And we have a way, if you're on the internet, you can get this. I'm not leaving you out. There it is. See that little thing? I'm looking at it. That QR code, you scan that, and you get you on the internet. You get your own gratitude and kindness journal. Now, this is what I want you to do with it. Once a day, I want you to write in this journal one thing you're thankful for. You see, without gratitude, you can't have generosity. Because if you're not grateful for anything, you'll complain. God, I don't have. God, I'm tired of. God, why don't you, blah. Y'all know, I don't have to, One thing, I don't care how big or how small, one thing. God, I thank you that you got me out to preach this sermon, because believe me, I really want to bless the people. And, I just, thank you for blessing the people. I don't know. And then number 2, one act of kindness that you would do for another person that you did that day. Now, this is hard, you all, because some days I miss doing anything kind for anybody other than me. So now I have to look for opportunities, right? So what we typically do is to do stuff for other people, and it's really about us. But I mean what is genuinely and sincerely for another person. I'm going to give you an example. Now, I'm beyond this, women, y'all, I'm already been forgiven for this. I've already learned. So I confess having already gotten absolution. When we were early in our marriage, first, second year, I bought a brand new washer and dryer. It was state of the art. It was shining. It was looking good. I didn't go cheap. as a Christmas present for my wife. Don't judge me. I already been forgiven. The women are like, what? Her response was, that's for the house. I'm waiting on my present. That's an example of doing stuff for other people that's really about us. You see what I'm saying? Y'all hear what, I want you to do something that's really for another person. And I want you to practice to build your muscle. And if you do it every day, you'll build a muscle. You'll be automatic. You'll start looking for good. So after all this, I want to ask you for a commitment. I know it's hard. Don't get discouraged if you miss a couple days or you skip a day or two. Don't get lost. Get back to it. In a moment, I'm going to ask you if you would commit, maybe just for the rest of Lent. I don't know. Maybe if you give you a shorter time. I want to say to the end of the year, but that may be, too much. I want you for the rest of the year to write one act of gratitude. God, I thank you for. And I want you to write one act of kindness that you have done for another person. That'll take 3-4 minutes a day. And it will build your generosity muscle. And when you add all these things that the church is doing to help you improve the finances, and we add all this stuff in place, you're going to be doing alms and tithes and blessing people and being generous, and you're going to be a philanthropist, and God is going to pour back in your life something that is exceedingly and abundantly more than what you can ask or even think. So I'm going to ask you to hold, if you are willing to commit to that, to hold up your journal. As a matter of fact, you can stand if you want to. You've been sitting a long time. The scripture says, let us do good to all people, especially let us do good to the immigrant. Let us do good to the one that has been marginalized, the one has been excluded. Let us do good to the sinner, the one who is regarded or disregarded by people. Let's do good to our families. Let's do good to our church, to our pastor, to our employees at work, to our employer. Let us So can I pray for you? God, I believe that this is the word of God unto the people of God today. God, I believe it. Thank you for all the things that had to come in place to be holding this journal. Thank you that there are people on the internet, God, even right now, who are writing, got the QR code for their journal. Thank you for what you're getting ready to do in the life of this church through this journal. Thank you for what you're getting ready to do in the life of my family. God, thank you for what you're getting ready to do in me. God, thank you, because it could have been me outdoors with no food and no clothes, all alone without a friend. Just another number with a tragic end, but you didn't see fit. I give my life back to you in gratitude and thanksgiving.